to everyone. I hope everybody is well. Welcome to Abrahamic Exchanges with your host, Zain Hussein. I hope you tuned in last week. It was an amazing show. I invited my amazing friend and guest, Daisy Aboudi, to speak about the history of Jews in the Middle East and Middle Eastern Jews in the UK and interfaith dialogue. With me today is my other friend, May Anwar. Assalamu alaikum, May.
Assalamu alaikum.
Okay, so today we are going to discuss in general why it's important for us to have interfaith dialogue. As you've noticed, May is a Muslim. Usually I would have non-Muslim guests. But I thought today would be a good chance for us to really investigate why are we doing interfaith dialogue? What is its importance? And May is somebody who is involved in interfaith dialogue. Do you want to talk a little bit more about yourself?
Okay. Right now I'm currently doing a master's degree on religion and global politics. I'm post finishing my master's, and throughout many years I've been involved in studying religion, and it's been quite a natural process for me to understand the whole interfaith, how it works, and also I have been involved in interfaith network.
Oh.
Yep.
Well, what's that like? What do you do?
It's quite interesting because I was working in the office, it's quite a small office, and what we do, we kind of collect the data of all the interfaith network, and usually on November there's like interfaith week, and people would have an interfaith event during that week, and what we do, we collect all the data and put it on the website, and people would use the website to find out a bit more about the interfaith network around the UK.
Okay, so that seems very interesting. What kind of events do you have?
Oh, very kind. Like events for the older people, younger people, and community walk. Something kind of event, like even food.
Okay, so the point in these events seems to be to bring people together.
Exactly.
Are there also like discussion events?
Yes,
or
there are.
Are they mostly focused on just bringing people together to have a good time?
Well, there are three events. Like for example, they hold a vigil on of a recent terror attack or attack within community, and not just that, but also they kind of also hold dialogue to talk about the issue. There have been one dialogue between the Israeli and Palestinian to talk about the issue, but also talk about how they can reconcile using their religion.
Okay. So that's really interesting. You've touched on a number of issues there, including the Israel-Palestine conflict and terrorism. And when it comes to interfaith dialogue, these are very important issues. I hope everybody agrees with me on that. These tend to be sort of the issues that divide a lot of people. It's important for us to be very honest about what we think about them. But sort of, let's just go back for a second, because we're going to touch on this later. Why is interfaith important in your opinion, May? Because I have my reasons, and I'm involved in interfaith dialogue, but I'd like to know a little bit more about what your reasoning is, since you actually do a master's in religion and global politics.
Okay, well, I can think of numerous reasons, and what I'm going to do is list the main reason. If you look at the current crisis, like the conflict, and also understanding one another, like mutual empathy, and also it's important that we can sympathize one another and understand how we, not just like from our counterpart, for other people counterpart, like for example the Muslims itself that are going through many challenges, especially in the UK. We have faced so many numerous challenges, for example identity crisis and prejudice. But it's not just us, it's also other counterparts, for example Judaism and the Christianity. These people from those faith also struggle, they kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So with interfaith, we can break the barrier and we can talk about the issue that we face, and we can realise that it's not just us, it's also them.
Yeah, but I would like to add something to that. It is the fact that, I mean, we can talk about how we have these shared issues, but at the same time, with Muslims, I kind of we're a new minority in this country. That's number one. So a lot of the time, interfaith dialogue for me makes the mistake of assuming that we're on a par, we're on some sort of like level playing field. I'm not saying special accommodations need to be made, but what I am saying is that sometimes in interfaith dialogue, in my experience, I've seen Muslims who feel a lot of pressure to say Islam is a religion of peace. Christians and Jews who are involved in dialogue don't feel that type of pressure, as from what I see.
I feel like it's because they feel like they had to justify themselves.
Exactly.
Because the current event, for example, terrorism and the ISIS, as we all know, I'm sure the majority of people out there are pretty much know the kind of stuff they know that ISIS do not represent us. They do not represent everyone. We are a minority, but we're not just on one bit of homogeneous kind of group.
I agree with you.
We're different. I mean, we all have
I
different
agree with you. The point I'm trying to make is that a lot of the time when it comes to interfaith dialogue, Muslims end up having to sort of justify themselves a lot.
This is why, like I said, we have to justify ourselves. I mean, we shouldn't have to justify ourselves all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, we have to be more understanding. Instead of repeating, Islam is a religion of peace. No. Yes, we know that, but why the religion of peace? We need to show it. There's no point saying, Islam is religion of peace. We need to show it.
What do you mean?
For example, like show what we do as a Muslim person, how we can be Muslim and British at the same time.
Okay.
And show us why we practice our religion.
That's a good point, May. But why do we have that pressure when nobody else does? Like, why is it that Muslims are the ones who have to say we can be British and Muslims, and why don't Jews have to? Why don't Jews and Christians feel that same pressure, or do they?
Maybe I'm wrong or that. It depends because
it does depend. It's because making discussion.
It's because if you look at the media itself, it's kind of a platform of how we kind of feel pressurized. Because the media, I'm not going to criticize the media all the time, because the media is not always the problem, but there are the social problems sometimes. And for example, all these events like terror attack, the way they talk about the event, they kind of put a certain keyword, for example, jihad, the terror on the Muslims, and the name, it's a very Islamic name.
Yeah, like they would, and it's interesting because some stories get reported more than others. So Islamic terrorism gets reported more than other instances. I'm not saying it's not a problem. I'm not even saying it's not a specific problem.
But that's because of that, we kind of thought we need to tackle the problem.
So maybe one way of doing interfaith dialogue could be to say, I'm going to say Islam is a religion of peace, but I don't see why I have to justify myself more than anyone else.
Exactly.
So maybe that's a way of doing it, putting ourselves on a parity with other people and saying, if you don't have to do it, I don't have to do it. So maybe that's one way of doing it. And because a lot of the time I will, if I'm really, really honest, I'll be involved in dialogue with, some Jewish people who will make comments about Islam not being a religion of peace, or maybe not that to that extent, but they will make some comments like there aren't enough peaceful voices in the Muslim community. And I will turn around and say how many Jewish people are criticizing Zionism, for instance. You know what I mean? I'm not doing it to make a point that there aren't enough Jews who are criticizing Zionism, but I will be throwing that same question to them just to make them realize that it's actually not just a Muslim issue. When it comes to extremism, it's a problem in Jewish communities as well. And so that brings me to another point, really. The Israel-Palestine conflict. It's also a huge issue, and I kind of think that I think we'll save that for a little bit later, because when we start to talk about what types of interfaith dialogue can be good, what can be bad, what's productive, what's not productive, but so you've gone through your experiences of interfaith dialogue. Do you want to give me a bit more? Sure. What led you into it?
What I'm learning?
Yeah, what led you? A bit more detail about what led you into interfaith dialogue.
Well, interfaith dialogue is not as simple as people make it out to be.
Yeah.
It's quite broad and quite diverse and unique.
Yeah.
Not all interfaith dialogue is exactly the same, like where you sit down and talk about our religion. No, it's not that. It's much more to it. Interfaith itself is like you can have not just dialogue. You can have interfaith dinner, interfaith some kind of dialogue, I suppose, but with the dialogue.
Yeah, because our focus is on dialogue, more than anything, because the meals, the other things, they happen, but we're more interested in the dialogue, right?
Yeah, I think with the dialogue, people assume that, we want to talk about our religion, but no, not necessarily. We talk about the current issue, and from there, dialogue can act as a bridge between the barrier, and a lot of people kind of create the barrier between for example, the Muslim community, the Jewish community, or Christian community, and that interfaith dialogue, it kind of breaks down the barrier, and
definitely. This idea of breaking down barriers, a lot of people, think that it's a sort of very liberal take on dialogue, that it's too naive, or that it's too it's not focused enough. So, I mean, in my experience, I think that breaking down barriers can be a useful concept, but the ultimate goal isn't just to do that. The ultimate goal is to talk. And in my experience, if I can speak about it, when I started teaching Hebrew at the Wimbledon Synagogue, when I started teaching students there, those conversations were happening automatically. So you can imagine 9 to 10 or 11 to 12-year-old young Jewish students who, obviously they may have Muslim friends at school, but within the space of worship, and within that space, they would only really encounter other Jewish people. So for some of them, it was a real shock to find out that I was Muslim. After that came the questions, and there were many. So, what are you doing here? Why are you here? Sometimes the questions would be that blunt. Sometimes they'd then ask me about religion. So what do you think of Jews even? Those sorts of questions. Or what does Islam say about Jews? Or what do you do on the Hajj? All sorts of different questions. Some of them were really political, even as political as young people can be. And some of them were really faith-based, like, what do you pray? What's fasting like, for instance? And so those political questions are the ones that interest me more. Actually, I find when I'm in the synagogue, I don't talk that much about religion as I do about society, about social issues, about political issues, whenever we do talk about interfaith dialogue.
Because the religion is not the issue.
Yes.
It's not the issue. It's how people create those issues and then because those issues become politics.
Yeah.
It become a politics, and that's why people are so more concerned about the politics, because the religion, they are aware the religion has no issue. There's no flaw in the religion. It's the people, how they cook the religion, like interpretation and exactly. But then that makes religion the issue, right? And it puts that... It's not necessarily... I think the religion shouldn't have to be the issue. It's not the issue.
No, I agree with you.
But people will make it look at it's the issue. It's like you're blaming it on the whole tree for one failed
Russet apple, yeah.
It's not the case.
But the tree produces... I'm joking. The tree produces the rotten apple. And no, that's how a lot of people will look at it. So for now, I'll leave it here, because we have a lot of other things to talk about. It's not as if we've run out of ideas, but we will take a short break for now. And please tune back in after the break.
Will sort it out.
UK window? Oh, corner.
They're the best double glazing company about. They do windows, patios, French doors, sliding doors, UPVC, aluminium, you name it, they've got it. We can go see them at 51 to 53 Upton Lane, Forest Gate E79PA, or call them at 07984 440 093 or visit ukwindowslondon.co.uk.
Wah ji wah, ye tak kamal hai yaar. UK Windows
Zindabad.
Thinking about selling or letting your home? With Maxwell Estates, you don't need to look any further. Well established with over 15 years of experience, Maxwell Estates are specialists in residential sales and lettings. We manage over 200 properties in and around Northwest London, keeping our landlords and tenants updated with all the latest laws and legislations. Based in Edgware, our experienced specialist negotiators always ensure we maximise the full potential of your property. Call us now on 0208 952 0808 for a free no obligation quotation, or visit our website www.maxwellestates.co.uk for further information. Maxwell Estates, the name you can trust.
With over 25 years experience in the East London area, there's no better firm to rely on than Cameron Adams Century 21 when it comes to properties. Be it lettings, property management or sales, we can assist you to ensure you get the most out of your property. Contact us on 0208 558 2000 for a free, no obligation valuation and watch us do what we do best.
Grab your taste of luxury at Pink's Boutique. Designer brands like Hugo Boss and Armani to keep your style in check. Catering for ladies, men and kids, Pink's Boutique has it all under one roof. And we offer shipping worldwide, so get the look to fit your attitude. Visit us on our website at pinksboutique.co.uk. Remember, that's pnksboutique.co.uk. Or pop into our store at 302 Brentwood Road, Romford, RM2 5TA.
Ramadan FM 2018.
The voice of British Muslims.
European University of Business now offering BA Business Management, MBA with specialisation. Our courses are regulated by UK Quality Assurance Agency and taught in a highly professional environment. Special offer for Ramadan FM 2018 listeners only. Please call on 0203 288 3143. Email info@universityofbusiness.eu.
Solicitors in. You can expect a variety of services from us, ranging from family law, immigration, human rights, money claims, personal injury and many more. We are committed to providing you with the best legal advice suited to your individual circumstances. Drop us a call on 0203 500 8000. Our office is located at 62 Barking Road, East Ham, E6 3BP.
Why spend summer in your room when you can fly off to your dream destination with facilities like car hire and hotel bookings? Well, Flight Masters have got you covered. We offer holiday packages, city breaks and flights at the most reasonable prices with the best provision of services. So why delay? Call us today on 0203 598 9938 or visit our website at www.flightmasters.com.
Do you dream of travelling to those blessed lands where the beloved of Allah was born? Does your heart yearn for Medina, the city of the beloved? If it is your time to experience a spiritual journey words cannot justify, then join us at Sam Travel and Tours and book your Hajj and Umrah packages today. We offer group and tailor-made packages for all your requirements. Based on Romford Road in London, for our last 10 days Umrah package, please call us on 0208 478 8911.
Ramadan FM 2018.
The voice of British Muslims.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum to everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Abrahamic Exchanges with your host Zain Hussein. I'm with my guest May Anwar, who's a good friend. We were talking about interfaith dialogue before the break and why it's important. We were talking about our experiences of it as well, and May has extensive experience of interfaith dialogue. So we want to kind of move on now to another sort of part of interfaith dialogue that is good and bad interfaith dialogue. So oftentimes people take it for granted, you know. Those people who are involved in interfaith dialogue take it for granted and they just feel like it's creating peace out of thin air. But sometimes interfaith dialogue can be quite not destructive, but it can also impede progress towards peace. It can be a distraction from important issues, and I want to kind of touch on that with my guest May. So May, give us an idea of, in your opinion, what is good interfaith dialogue and what is bad interfaith dialogue?
Okay, I'm gonna start with the good part.
Yeah.
Okay, but as I mentioned that interfaith dialogue is like acting as a bridge between a barrier. But that's not just all about it. It's so much more. It's also kind of, in a way, we can understand one another. For example, the whole conflict between Israel and Palestine, people would assume that Zionism is part of Judaism, but not necessarily. It's more political ideology. But people naturally people will kind of associate with Zionism with Jew, just like some people will associate the Muslim with the terrorism, ISIS and so on. And the interfaith dialogue is the way of showing that how we do not associate with this kind of ideology and the kind of movement.
But, you know, it's interesting, and so that's a very good way of looking at interfaith dialogue, and that's a very good thing to get involved in. However, sometimes interfaith dialogue is often a platform for people who have those ideas you're talking about. So, for instance, yes, Zionism and Judaism aren't necessarily the same thing, and they are not necessarily, Zionism isn't necessarily a part of Judaism,
Exactly.
but for a large part of the Jewish community, it is.
Exactly.
And
so we can't go around and say, oh, it's not a part of your... Because
no, exactly. And so one of the things that I find, and also we're assuming that Zionism is one thing and the same thing, and, you know, people don't take it differently. So just because somebody says they're a Zionist as a Jewish person doesn't make them an inhumane person outright. There could be a lot of ignorance there that leads them to take that position. You know, as somebody who doesn't believe in Zionism, but still works within a setting where people do have these ideas, it is interesting to have those types of conversations, but also kind of uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I do think that discomfort is not a bad thing, and it, you know, being uncomfortable in that setting means that you're in a place where interfaith dialogue is supposed to happen. And often what counts for me as bad interfaith dialogue is interfaith dialogue that hides away from these issues, you know? So let's just get together and let's just have a nice meal. You know, when we talk about interfaith dialogue, it also happens in Israel-Palestine. But it takes that form. It takes the form of let's just get together and have a nice meal. Oftentimes it doesn't address anything. And everybody just keeps their views. So the status quo keeps on going. Nobody's questioning it. And so the same thing can happen here as well. For a lot of Muslims who come from working class backgrounds, who are relatively new to this country, and we are, oftentimes we will end up in dialogue with people who have been here for much longer. And we don't know when we're doing this, but we might actually be just perpetuating the status quo rather than fighting it. And so that's why, for me, that's when interfaith dialogue is a problem, when there isn't enough force to change. You know, I don't know what you might think of what I'm saying.
Well, I actually agree with what you're saying, because, like, for people who from a working class, they have so many issues for themselves. That's why it seems like interfaith for them is kind of not a solution to their problem, but it can be a safe space.
Yeah, it can be a safe space.
But it can never be a solution.
But do you think that interfaith dialogue should take that role? That interfaith dialogue should?
I think you need people be able to understand, especially people who lead that interfaith dialogue should actually come from the background of not having all this necessity and who's not privileged. And if they have all this kind of mutual understanding and also going through the same thing as other people, then they can be the spoken person for these people. We need that kind of people, because like people who like from upper class, they cannot be their person, they cannot be their role model, because they can never understand what they're going through.
Exactly, and we're not saying that all Christians and all Jewish people come from those backgrounds. Unfortunately, especially where Judaism is concerned, that's a stereotype. And I hope you guys can tune into my last session, because Daisy talked about this very well. You know, there's a reason for why these stereotypes exist. But it is generally a point to be made that Muslims are strategically in a disadvantaged societally in a disadvantaged position compared to other faith groups, you know, faith groups that have been here for longer, such as Christians and Jews. And oftentimes, I kind of feel that interfaith dialogue doesn't take that into account. For me, interfaith dialogue should include class struggle. It should include social issues. It should include those types of things as well, so that, you know, we can, firstly, so that interfaith dialogue becomes something more relevant to us, but also, secondly, so that Muslims aren't constantly in a position to have to justify themselves because of geopolitics. You know?
Exactly.
Geopolitics becomes the thing that Muslims have to talk about and justify. But Muslims never really have that opportunity to talk about what's bothering them domestically, to people, to society in general. And so for me, interfaith dialogue, unfortunately, can mean continuing that status quo. It can mean impeding growth. It can mean, not making a real effort to change. And so that's why, in my opinion, a lot of people who are involved in interfaith dialogue are from quite privileged backgrounds, including Muslims. Okay. And those are the same those are the same faces you'll see, right, on television, in the British Islam Conference. These are the same faces you'll see doing interfaith dialogue, are those people who, quite frankly, in my experience, don't have a very high view of Muslims themselves. I don't know if you want to unpack what I'm saying, but it frustrates me.
I can understand, but what frustrates me more is actually, as the interfaith, this is one of the reasons why there should be interfaith. It's because sorry.
It's all right. Thank you very much. It's just the mic.
The issue, it's something that I kind of experienced and something I've come across. In general, a majority of my friends are non-Muslim.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but that's just how it is. And I'm pretty much comfortable that way, okay? And I've spoken to them, and they have... It's just because they're quite comfortable talking to me about the issue they have encountered talking to Muslim people. I've come across 3 non-Muslim males saying that they would not be comfortable talking to women that wear hijab because they only thought that they would not be comfortable talking to them. And I thought that this is not the case, and this is quite sad. But I can understand them. And I'm not criticizing them because I actually agree with them, because we as a Muslim that wear hijab and kind of keep it in the group. I'm not saying they should go out and take it up, because if that were the case, I would have been wearing it.
Yeah.
And I feel like we should put our stuff out there to show what we are.
I'm not saying nothing is our fault, and I'm not
saying
no.
We should be more tolerant. That's the thing.
Yeah,
People
exactly.
are not tolerant.
I agree with you, and I know I'm talking about other communities, and I know I'm talking about it from the outside of the Muslim community, and how interfaith dialogue can sometimes disadvantage us as Muslims. But it's also the case that Muslims, we have a lot of social issues. Yep. Some of us do have a problem with integration. For me, taking the sort of dominant discourse of integration is problematic. So this idea that we need to somehow change our fundamental identity, that we don't question what's going on, that we constantly apologize, is problematic. However, we do need to be an integral part of society. For me, integration is really about taking that discourse, that dominant discourse of integration, and questioning it. And when we're questioning it, we are engaging with society. And Islam is a social religion, right? It's a religion that is about talking to everyone, about you and about your faith.
Well, people make it look like integration is a problem. People will say, "Oh, it's hard to assimilate into the society," but it's not the case.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah, because we don't have to physically change the way we look.
No, but sometimes we do have that pressure. What we need to do is we need to progress the way we think. Because if you look at it, the Islam is the extent of it is natural, it's pure, but the interpretation of it back then is based on that time and different view and patriarchal view. So we need to reform the way we think. And and do you know what? A lot of liberal Muslims and Muslims that are religious but also highly involved in interfaith dialogue can sometimes forget internal issues. So for them, interfaith dialogue is about image. This is another issue. Sometimes it's about image. It's not about actually changing anything. It's about survival. And I get it. We live in a non-Muslim society. Politics are incredibly harsh and biased against us, and so is the media. But sometimes we focus way too much on that image side of things. We forget that if that same non-Muslim asks us, what's the situation of people who are gay, lesbian, bisexual in your community? What do we tell them? You know, it's horrific.
That's the thing. People are not aware of it.
For instance.
That's why I say you need to progress the way we think. We need to kind of understand the alternative to teaching, like how we need to able to differentiate the difference between the Quran and the Sunnah with the interpretation. People kind of learn from the interpretation rather than look at the authentic talk, the story.
Yeah.
And people, because these interpretations are based in time, they do not come across with all these kind of problems that we are facing now. So that's why we need to be able to talk about it and also think about what interpretation we can use to talk about the issue.
Yeah, and to be honest as well, sometimes we do need to look back and think, you know, sometimes the past can be a good source of wisdom for us. So that issue I just spoke about, the issue of homosexuality, for instance, scholars in the past may have actually been they would never have said it's acceptable to engage in like same-sex relations, but they would have definitely said that, you know, it's not like unnatural, so to speak, to have those thoughts. You just don't act on them or do anything haram, you know. But, you know, now the discourse is not Islamic around the issue. The same issue with regards to women and divorce is similar.
That's the thing. It's something, okay, with women and divorce, it's because people kind of can you have to understand that the getting divorced in the Quran and the Sunnah is completely different from the interpretation, because the way they interpret marriage is more of a sale.
That's a good point. People do see it as a sale, and a lot of Jewish people do the same. Look at marriage in the same way.
It's not. It's about unity between a man and a woman.
Yeah.
It's not just when it's a state where they can consummate the marriage.
Yeah, exactly. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
But that's not the case. Marriage is much more to it. It's a beautiful thing, but people kind of overlook it, and especially when I come from South Asian community.
Oh goodness! You'll have the parents like debating over the mahar for the daughter. It's ridiculous. Like it's really sad, and also when divorces happen.
Yeah.
And this is why we're bringing up the issues of like homosexuality and marriage and divorce. It's because these are interfaith issues, in dialogue with Jewish communities as well. These are huge issues amongst many Jewish communities as well, even not just, and sometimes beyond just Orthodox Jews. And this is a huge issue within Muslim communities as well, and they're quite pervasive in our communities. When it comes to divorce, I often say that even if, because this is where the image thing, I know I don't mean to be insensitive, and
that's the thing, we need to talk about it, because
I know, and I'm trying to, but women are vulnerable when it comes to marriage within religious communities, because they can literally get divorced in 3 short breaths, and there's little they can do about it. You know. And the issue is, so a lot of those same women will be involved very, very openly in giving Islam a good image, you know. And it's not about criticizing Islam. That's not what I'm doing. I'm making a social criticism. You know, it's for the scholars, the ulama, to talk about it with us. But I have experience of these issues too, not having gone through divorce myself, but like knowing people who have, you know. And so, like, obviously not. I'm not, you know, just to clarify. But the point I'm making is sometimes we can be so focused on the image and interfaith dialogue that we actually forget we have real issues. And both Muslim and Jewish communities, and that's my experience, have a lot of issues they need to talk about, and they just don't, and they hide it in interfaith dialogue.
Exactly. Like, for example, with the divorce, I know it's going off the topic, but with the divorce,
not really, no.
Thank you. Like you say, it's easy for men to stay divorced, like talaq 3 times, simple. But what people don't realise is the innovation. It's not active sunnah. It's not in the Quran.
Interesting.
Exactly. It's called.
I think it, you know, because we don't have any ulama here to like talk.
It's not Islamic at all.
Yeah,
it just come after the Prophet time. So
I don't know too much about this, to be
in
honest.
In the Quran, it actually talks about how to work. It's about 3 month waiting period.
Yeah.
It's like one each. You say you divorce each month, and because in Islam it gives the opportunity where the couple can take the time apart and reconcile. That's what it is, and also it's not fair for women to.
Yeah, and also it's not just about the divorce, isn't it? It's also about
how we can't get divorced as well.
But also, what happens after divorce when a woman gets divorced, and that stigma, you know, and it happens to a lot of Jewish women as well. When you know, because you know, from my knowledge, divorce in Judaism involves a document called the get administered by the husband, and you know, when that happens, there's a huge stigma against women. If you know, especially. Yes, there's huge stigma against women. You know, there's a concept of chained women as well. It's really sad to see that happen. I don't want to get too much into detail. I was just wary of what I was doing because we don't want to get too bogged down into this. The point I'm trying to make is that it's an interfaith. It's an issue that affects both communities, and it's an issue that it would be very useful as both communities to talk to each other about as well. To see what we can do to improve the situation so that we recognize that this is a social issue, right? You know, and so that's one of the reasons why interfaith dialogue can be bad, is that it can ignore issues of geopolitics, it can ignore social issues, it can ignore class issues. So interfaith dialogue can literally be just a liberal get-together, and I hate it when that happens.
But it also can cause more conflict and more.
Can you give me an example?
Misconception. For example, and I will talk about divorce. If we like, for example, how you have to understand the divorce, the whole process is very different between the Muslim community and the Jewish community.
I agree with you.
The way how they do it, but. Like, can you tell me how a bit more about how they do it?
It's about getting it. You have to get like a document called a get, and then the divorce happens. If you're a woman, sometimes if a man doesn't agree to the divorce, he can be cajoled, so they can try and force him to give the divorce. But if he doesn't, ultimately the divorce doesn't happen. Sometimes what I've seen is that in some newspapers, or you know, there will be a sort of notice that this man is refusing to divorce his wife. He's not a good Jewish person. He's not acting according to halakha, according to Jewish law. Don't let him into your synagogues. So that's another way of like socially ostracizing a man who's refusing to divorce his wife. But it can't happen unless he. Do you know what I mean? And in Muslim communities, it's slightly different. You know, you can get a divorce without your husband, without that pressure of. But the point is.
That's what I'm gonna make.
You know, but the point is, like, there is still pressure on women in our communities because a man can do it there and then. And oftentimes they do it, and oftentimes it's not for good reasons.
And for women, if we want to get a divorce, we have to go through kola. It's like a mutual agreement. And sometimes men do not consent to divorce. It takes the whole year to go through the court procedure, and you need counsel.
I think this draws on a bigger interfaith issue that is one of patriarchy, right?
Exactly. This is why I want to point out, because it just gives people misconception, assuming that the religion from one another is very patriarchal, or dehumanize women or dehumanize men in Judaism. How you just said how if men refuse to divorce their wives.
Yeah.
It basically shows that we kind of humiliate. It shows like how our religion humiliates other people, but that's not the case. That's why we need to be very careful to show that our religion do not.
But this is what I mean. Interfaith dialogue can't be the same with every faith we do it with, right? I mean, with Christians, when we do interfaith dialogue with Christians in this country, it's going to take a different shape than the interfaith dialogue that we might do with Jewish communities. Because with Jewish communities, we're both minorities, right? And we both have these sorts of issues that we need to go through. We also have the Israel-Palestine conflict, which is a source of tension for both of our communities. For me, the Israel-Palestine conflict isn't a religious conflict, but it is an issue of interfaith concern. that's why we need to talk about that. We have the issue of like patriarchy within our legal systems as Jews and Muslims, like however it's implemented. You know, I'm not going to talk about what Islam actually says without an alim over here, but how it's implemented is incredibly disadvantageous for women. Sometimes women go through to a Sharia court and it takes them like more than a year to get their khula done. It's a long and gruesome process, I have to say. And you have like, so you have those issues. You also have issues with integration, arguably, and when it comes to the Orthodox people of both faiths. So like when it comes to Jewish people, our interfaith dialogue will be different. When it comes to Christians, our interfaith dialogue will probably be different as well, because there we have a history. We have a sort of history involving huge conflict and also colonialism. And so that kind of needs to be addressed, and it often isn't. So when we talk about terrorism, and we talk about the things that are going on in the Muslim world and why terrorists happen, as Muslims we go straight to apologizing and saying it's not part of our faith, which is good. But then we don't talk about why that's happening in the first place. You know, we don't talk about the ill effects of foreign policy. And the problem is a lot of non-Muslims have a misconception that foreign policy is often good. You know, that US foreign policy is good. And that, you know, and oftentimes Muslims who are involved in interfaith dialogue sometimes get themselves agreeing without knowing that they're agreeing, or acquiescing at least, without knowing they're acquiescing, because they're leaving an important issue off the table.
What an interesting point that you were making, how we kind of apologise of these kind of stuff happening, but also you also say why these stuff is actually happening. Well, if you look at it, the Muslim community is very broad.
Yeah.
So people
incredibly
look at things quite differently. So it's like looking at my hand, and you can only see the front part. I can see the back part, and you will look at this. The way it's just the hand, basically. It's the same thing, but it's just how you look at things. That's what it is. People look at things quite differently and assume the bad part of it, and that's what it is. The people like ISIS, they cut the content out of the Quran and assume that that's what Islam is all about, like killing non-Muslim. But that's not what Islam is saying.
No.
It's not.
No.
That's what it is. It's just how people are so misguided, and people are so uneducated about the kind of issue, and people will assume that we promote the kind of stuff. That's the problem, because this is just how we see things. That's why I think we need to progress the way we think.
Yeah.
Because what I mean by progress out the way we think, we need to understand all the different ideology, being aware of kind of different thinking, how we can merge from different ideology with our religion, and from there we can talk about delusion, because we can't talk about delusion if we're not aware and if we're not.
Yeah, we need that awareness.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
That's why
totally.
the interfaith dialogue, it needs to be not just one time, it has to be over time.
That I agree with you, and it needs to start with getting together, getting to know each other, and developing a relationship.
Not just that,
of
but
trust.
it's also show. It's more of progress. It's different thing. It's not the same thing going on and on. About
No, I agree with you. What I'm trying to say is that there needs to be that relationship of trust before you express yourself, you know. Anyway, we're going to go for a short break. We'll be back very, very soon. Please don't go away. Thank you for tuning in.
Cranbrook Road, Ilford, IG1 4LX. Ramadan FM 2018.
The voice of British Muslims.
Atlantic Distributions. Whether it is frozen fish, marinated Lahori masala fish, or lamb offals, we have them available at very competitive prices. We are wholesale suppliers to restaurants, butchers and caterers. Visit us at 51 to 53 Upton Lane, London, E7 9PA. Contact us on 07415 474 185.
Usman needs the adhesive to work. If not, his day will be a disaster. So Usman, if you really need something to bond, grab a tube of CT1 from your local stockist. An incredibly powerful sealant and construction adhesive that's fast, flexible and strong. It can be used anywhere. even underwater. For more info, ct1limited.com or follow us on Facebook or ring us on 0208 555 1448.
In an age of technological advancement, mass communication and social media, having the right website and app can be the difference that your business needs. AppSite Tech are here to take...
Okay, Assalamu alaikum everyone. That was a very short break. Thank you for tuning in again to Abrahamic Exchanges with your host Zain Hussein and with our guest May Anwar. We've just had a very lively discussion about good and bad interfaith dialogue that's useful and not useful. After talking about, why it's important, we're going to kind of leave that conversation and now focus a little bit on youth in interfaith dialogue. So, May, why is it important for young people to be involved in interfaith dialogue?
Because the younger people are our future, and these people, it's because they have different understanding and they are pretty much assimilated to the British society. So we need their help to able to break down the barrier, because the interfaith dialogue kind of come from people from different generations, and language barrier can be the issue between the dialogue. With the younger people, the barrier, the language barrier is not the case, because they will be able to communicate in English, and also because they go to school, so they kind of come across people that isn't Muslim. So this is why younger people is very important, because they will know how to talk to people. That's why it's important.
And I'm asking this question because it is an issue. Young people often don't get involved, and interfaith dialogue is now the scene. Maybe it's changing now, actually, but it's often the scene for old people, often men. Let's be honest. There are good groups that are like Nisan Hashim, which bring Jewish and Muslim women together. I'm not in a position to have a detailed conversation about that particular organization. I mean, especially since we've not got time, but we do. It is an issue that I think young people need to be involved in. It's because we are the ones with the most questions about our own religions and about other people's religions and about geopolitics.
But it's not just that, but also we ourselves are going through identity crisis.
That's what
And like the younger people, I remember being ages 14, 10 years ago, I would be very confused. I would often ask myself, what am I? I'm not just a Muslim, I'm not just Pakistani, I'm not just British, but like I feel like I have to be one of those. I mean, it's so confusing, but I realise it's not such a thing, being one of those, you are all, that's who you are. But because no one out there actually talking about it, and this is why it's really, really scary, because people, it often leads to suicide. Because
it can do,
Yeah, because people don't have to expect the problem and talk from it. And that's why for interfaith dialogue, it's hard and kind of break down the order issue and address the issue.
It's interesting that you mentioned interfaith, identity crises, because as I mentioned before, I mentioned the issue of homosexuality, and I know people who have killed themselves over this issue. And so, it is an issue that we need to talk about. We need to talk about the issue of like divorce in our communities as well. But I also generally speaking, being British and being Muslim can be a difficult thing. Aside from the other issues that we're talking about.
Like for example, what I'm going to say is very controversial, but like
it's fine.
Yeah, well, it's because it's so easy for younger people to conform to British society. Like for example, a lot of exposure of people like engaging in something that we should have been doing in Islam, for example, sexual activity, and it's so easy out there. People can engage that kind of stuff, and because people feel like they respect it and they think, oh, it's only our religion, but it's not. They kind of unpack it. It's all religion. That's why if we have interfaith dialogue, talk a bit more about it, about the order issue.
That's a very limited way. That's very
much
specific.
More to it. One can, but
it's very specific. Also, it's assuming that everybody who is involved will think the same about that. But and I think interfaith dialogue is really useful for me personally, because it's taught me a lot about my relationship to my faith, right? When you talk... Okay, I think we have a call. This hasn't happened before.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. Who are we talking to?
Aisha Khan.
Oh, hello Aisha Khan. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Did you want to talk about something specific? What did you want to talk about?
Oh, I think
Reciting Naat.
Oh, okay. Well, this isn't the Naat show. This is the Interfaith show, so you can't do it now. I think you called in at the wrong time.
What time is it in?
I think it was the time before, but now it's too late, so we're going to... Yeah, so I think you made a little mistake. It's fine, though. Maybe tell your parents to call in next Saturday, okay?
What time?
I think it's at 11. I'm not sure. You'll have to wait till next week.
Right, okay.
5 to
Thank you
6:30
very
today. Oh, sorry, 5 to 6:30 today. I think they do something before as well, but it's 5 to 6:30 today, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Bye. Someone mistakenly called in. I was surprised somebody did because I didn't mention the number before. We're too late to take calls at this point. But yeah, so like finishing off our conversation on interfaith dialogue, youth should get involved because they are the ones with the most questions. They are the ones who are the future, as you've said, and they are the ones who are better in a position to talk about issues, question, their parents' way of thinking, and their own, and in their society and in their communities, and sort of work on these issues with each other. So I'll end it here today. Were there any last minute words you wanted to say?
Well, we shouldn't be afraid to pick out a man.
Yeah.
If you feel like interfaith dialogue is that where we can't speak out, don't be. I mean, you can talk about this kind of stuff without being controversial. So just go for it. That's why we need interfaith dialogue, because people are so afraid they keep it in themselves, and that's why people say the healthy relationship is communication. So we need to communicate, and in order to, we need to address the issue, and from there we can come at solution.
Yeah, exactly. No, I agree with you. We need to have confidence.
Exactly.
And one of the things that we might be able to do on an interfaith basis with young people who are involved in interfaith dialogue is focus on stuff like public speaking, focus on stuff like delivering, because that's actually really important. That confidence is really important. Oftentimes Muslims, even adults, don't have the confidence to talk about these important issues.
Even I don't have it.
No, I know, right? It's difficult. It's easy for me to say in this setting, yeah, we need to talk about this and that. When I'm actually in that setting, I can't tell you how hard it can be sometimes to say, you know what, let's talk about the conflict, or you know what, let's talk about women's rights. Sometimes I need to be pushed, and we need to work on our confidence as young Muslims to talk about these issues. Firstly, we need to learn about them. We need to know them inside out, and then we can talk about them.
Exactly.
Okay, so thank you for tuning in. I hope we've given you some sort of framework for working with interfaith dialogue, or added on to your previous ways of thinking. If you have sort of any suggestions, just comment on Facebook as well. And thank you for tuning in. I hope that we can look forward to having more constructive interfaith dialogue in the future. Okay, Assalamu alaikum.